person, and that's not really the books I read. So I'm gonna read the first chapter or a couple pages of 5 books. All of these are in a series. The first book of a series for 5 series that I've been really loving. And maybe you can find something that you're interested in. I think most of these are indie book authors. So, yeah. These are the books we're going to be going with, and we're just going to get started. The first one is Hell and High Water by Charlie Cochet. And when homicide detective Dexter Daly's testimony helps send his partner away from murder, the consequences and the media frenzy aren't far behind. He soon finds himself Sand's boyfriend, Sand's friend, and after an unpleasant encounter in a parking garage after the trial, he's lucky he doesn't find himself Sand's teeth. Dex fears he'll get transferred from the human police force's 6th precinct, or worse, get dismissed. Instead, his adoptive father, a sergeant at the Theory and Human Intelligence Recon Defense Squadron, otherwise known as the Thirds, pulls a few strings, and Dex gets recruited as a defense agent. This is the reading order for the series. I've read all of them. Also, for YouTube censorship reading reasons, some of these words might have to be edited, but we'll do our best. F my life. Dex closed his eyes, wishing this was nothing more than some freakishly vivid dream where any moment now he would wake up and everything would go back to the way it was. Of course, when he opened his eyes, nothing had changed. He splashed more water on his face in an effort to ease the tension, but it didn't help. Not that he'd been expecting it to. After wiping the excess water from his face, he paused to glare at the man in the mirror. The guy staring back at him looked like crap, pale with reddish-brown circles under his eyes that made him look as if he'd either been crying or using crack. There were definitely a lot of sleepless nights involved. Dex didn't like the guy in the mirror. What a jerk. Are they out there? His voice came out rough, as if waking from sleep, deep or otherwise, had been out of his reach for some time. A hand landed on his shoulder, offering a sympathetic squeeze. Yes, remember what we talked about. As soon as you've had enough, you walk away. Dex let out a snort. It was too late to walk away. Had been about 6 months ago. He straightened and snatched a paper towel from the automated dispenser. It was like drying off with newspaper. The same newspapers that had his image plastered all over their pages. Images that had been run through some Photoshop douchebag filter to make him look like even more of a prick. He chucked the paper into the wastebasket and stood there, finding it difficult to face his lawyer. Hey, look at me. Littman stepped up to him and patted his cheek. You did the right thing. Dex looked up then, searching for something, anything that might help the pain go away, even for a little while. Then why do I feel like this? Because he was your friend, Dex. Exactly, and I screwed him over. Some friend. He went back to leaning over the sink, his fingers gripping the porcelain so tightly his knuckles hurt. What the heck had Walsh been thinking? Obviously, he hadn't been, or neither of them would be in this mess. Or worse, maybe Walsh had thought it out. Maybe he'd been so certain Dex would have his back that he thought, screw it. Dex closed his eyes, trying to get the man's face out of his mind, but he could still see it clearly. That face was going to haunt his dreams for a long time coming. The mixture of anger and pain when the verdict had been given, anger directed at Dex and pain brought about by what he'd done, had been there for the world to see, especially Dex. No, Littman insisted. He screwed himself over. All you did was tell the truth. The truth. How could doing the right thing turn out so bad? Had it even been the right thing? It had seemed like it at the time. Now he wasn't so sure. Regardless, he couldn't hide out in the restroom all his life. Let's get this over with. A few deep breaths, and he followed Littman out into the corridor. The moment he stepped foot out there, the locusts swarmed him, microphones buzzing, recorders and smartphones at the ready, flashes going off, cameras rolling, a litany of questions flying at him from every direction. It was was as if he were underwater, hearing everyone outside the pool yelling and screaming as he sank to the bottom like a stone. No discernible words, only muffled sounds. Lightman stepped up beside him, one hand behind Dex's back in assurance, the other held up to the crowd in a vain attempt to bring order to chaos. Okay, I'm jumping ahead just a little bit to chapter 4 of this book, just so that you can kind of get a little bit more of the vibe, because the first part of it is a struggle, but after this it turns into like a really kind of funny book. But honestly, if I skip too far ahead, then you would be spoiled. But yeah, let's see. You couldn't stay put, could you? Dex followed Tony out of the elevator, eager to finally get a look at his workspace. He was far less anxious now than he had been before he'd met his team, though he had plenty of other concerns. I think it went well. Well, it was a disaster. Your new team leader beat the crap out of you, which, by the way, is starting to become a disturbing habit. Tony stepped to one side, that vein pulsing in his head, the same one that had been pulsing when he found Dex getting dressed in the locker room and not in the lounge as he'd instructed. After a few choice words, and after he sent the rest of the team to the briefing room to wait, Tony had looked at Dex, opened his mouth, then closed it, before marching off and barking for him to follow. Do you think this is a joke? I stuck my neck out for you and you couldn't even wait for me to make the proper introductions. Dex frowned. You act like you don't know me. I like to do things my way because my way works. I'm not going to change who I am because I'm on the demolition squad. I appreciate what you've done for me, you know I do, and I'm grateful to be here, but you need to trust me. I know what I'm doing. And what's that? Dex met his hard-ass father's gaze, trying to save your team from itself. What are you talking about? With a discreet glimpse to make sure no one was within hearing distance, Dex explained, your team hasn't healed and your team leader is hanging by a thread. Tony appeared to be momentarily stunned. Seeming to shake himself out of it, he motioned for Dex to continue. In the short time since he'd met his team, Dex had managed to pick up on a lot, and it concerned him greatly. His new partner, especially. You think Agent Brody beat the crap out of me because he doesn't like me? He beat the crap out of me because something about me got under his skin and that pissed him off. He doesn't want me here. If I stay, it means he has to leave Gabe behind, and he's not ready to do that. It's not about my being good enough. It was never about that. You can't tell me the last 6 or so agencies run off didn't know what they were doing. The guy practically punched my lights out for talking about Gabe's locker. What else? Ash is a certified prick. He's channeling his pain into anger that he takes out on whoever tries to step into Gabe's shoes. Gale has his own little world because he doesn't want to face what happened. Calvin and Hobbs. I haven't even heard Hobbs talk. Does he talk? He's a theory in a few words, Tony murmured. Anyway, get on with it. Calvin and Hobbs are seriously codependent on each other. We both know how dangerous that can be. We have protocols, and right now, I'm not sure they'd adhere to them. Letty, she's trying to keep her head down. Rosa, despite her demeanor, is coping a lot better than the rest of them. She's learned how to deal. And you managed to pick up all of that while being hung upside down by a fellow agent, getting yourself beat to crap by your new team leader, and tormenting your baby brother in the showers. Yes, I would have had more, but I was momentarily distracted by all the soapy six-packs. Fraternizing with your teammates is not permitted. So, there, you got a brief introduction to the team at the start of the book, at least. So, that is Hell and High Water by Charlie Cochet, the 3rd series. It's delightful. Like I said, I've read all of the books. I love them. There's also like a spin-off series. Still good. We're gonna do this one so I can get out of the way. This is Happy Endings by Alice Winters. Yeah. I really enjoyed this book, but I am not looking forward to reading it aloud to you. Smart men never dabble with demons. I never claim to be smart, but at least I'm powerful enough to control them. When I bound havoc to mean for so long. Da-da-da. So Alice Winters is a popular indie author, and I like half of her books and half of them don't work for me. I liked this one. I've liked several of her other books, but yeah. Chapter 1. My day's been going pretty smoothly. I haven't had any interruptions, and I just picked up a really good book on the various ways people have failed at summoning demons. It's always fun to laugh at the failures of others. Or at least it was going smoothly until I sent someone heading my way who I've never met before, which probably means that I don't want to meet them. With my finger, I draw the sign of illusion on my left hand and then on my right, and with just a thought, I throw an illusion on myself. The illusion allows me to disguise my actual features and make me appear to be something different to the viewer. No longer do I look like the 26-year-old man I am with dark brown hair, longer on the top, and dark blue eyes. Instead, I now appear to be a person a little more appropriate for screwing with someone. An 84-year-old woman. People automatically react to an elder woman much differently than they would a guy in their 20s, so I feel like it's an appropriate illusion. The door dings as it is pushed open and two men walk in, instantly looking around. One is a man in his 30s, who appears to be Latino with dark hair that's cut short. His dark brown eyes turn right to me as I watch it. The man next to him is older with light brown hair and blue eyes, and seems much more confident in the way he moves up to the desk. They reek of cop long before they pull out their badges. "Good morning, ma'am," the older man says. "See, instant respect. My name is Detective Ian Smith." "Detective Sam Diaz," the younger one says as they both show me their badges. "We are looking for a man named," what was that name again? Ian pulls out a paper. "Milliant Shafi Voldeshev," he asks, completely butchering the name. "Milliant Shavoldechev," I ask, pronouncing it correctly. "Yes," he says. "Can we speak with him?" I shake my head and realize that an even better idea is being a half-deaf older lady. "Who? Millie's got a shave?" I ask, pretending that I didn't just correctly pronounce the name a moment ago. "You just said his name correctly for us." "Who?" "Milliant. We're here to show him a message." "A massage? Oh, yes," I say, and realize that I am too bored to not have fun with these guys. "You're here for a massage?" "No, we need to speak to Milliant Shavoldechev," Sam says sternly. I shake my head. No, we give massages. We don't give millions, just massages." "We were told to find him here. Could you tell us who he is?" Ian asks. "What? Could I tell you about what?" "About the massage. Normal massage." "Oh." I make my eyes super wide. "I know what you youngins want. Happy endings," I declare eagerly. "Is there prostitution going on here?" Sam asks as he looks at me in alarm. No one's getting prosecuted. Just massages. Massages and happy endings, I say. "Yes, happy ending is an act of prostitution," Sam says, "and it's illegal. So unless you want us to report you, you'll need to tell us who the man we're looking for is." "No, of course not. There are no prosthetics." I wave at my chest where my breasts hang low. "All real," I say. "Prostitution. A happy ending is..." Ian then proceeds to mimic someone getting jerked off, and I have to try my hardest not to laugh. I mimic the motion. "What? You boys in your lingo. I'll cut you a deal. $20. Happy ending is $40. She claims it's not prostitution, but continues to try to sell it to us. Ian says to Sam. They are both watching me in exasperation, and I'm loving every moment of it. It's not often I get to screw around with people like this. Basically, the whole book is honestly just him messing with people, and he has a demon that helps him do that. It's delightful. There's 3 books currently in this series, and the series does get a little bit more serious as you go along, but I think there's going to be 5 total, but the 3rd one just came out this year. Okay. The Last Son by Katie Edwards. Y'all, I love this series with my whole heart. Yeah. Rune St. John, last child of the fallen Sun Court, is hired to search for Lady Justice's missing son, Adam, on New Atlantis, the island city where the Atlanteans moved after ordinary humans destroyed their original home. With through a Baroque cathedral ceiling. What wasn't window was gilded mirror facing each other and reflecting the gallows light and motion in an infinite loop. It was pretty, but I couldn't help thinking the effect was wasted on the self-indulgent crowd, like a gold filling in a rotted tooth. I glanced at my watch. Glance at my watch showed there were still 30 minutes before the raid would begin. Smoothing my impatience into an expression of moral vacuity, I wandered. There was plenty to look at. Ice blocks sculpted into nude cedars, banquet tables supporting crystal bowls that brimmed with jewel-colored pills, and slender bottles of bizarre substances. Not so much drinks as the idea of drinks, filled with oils and aloes and meaty twists of smoke. There was a 40-man chamber orchestra, a woman with flames dancing across the enamel of her teeth, a young page who chilled people's drinks with a spell that left frostbite on his palms. Servants saturated the crowd, delivering tray after tray of champagne. They were young, drugged, and blankly beautiful. I banked my distaste at this and said nothing. It would be over soon enough. Missing Brand, I gave the back of my ear a sharp tap. He'd probably want to kill everything in sight, too. It's working, he snapped, his voice a tinny echo inside my head. Calm down. I hid a smile, flicked the transmitter with a fingernail, and moved on. The surge of the crowd pushed me off course, which was how I found myself in the last place I'd intended to go, by the windows that faced the ocean. I stood there and stared at the familiar stretch of shore that abutted the lover's property. The gray night tide was lit by the sweep of a decorative lighthouse. In my memory, though, it was daytime. I saw a long white beach and sand as soft as campfire ash. I turned away from the window. A woman's nasal soliloquy caught my attention. She was dressed in handfuls of lace, cinched at the waist by a Semite's belt. Her sagging breast strained against the material as she pointed out the window and spoke to a crowd of young people. It's true. You must have heard the story series. That is the old Lord's son's estate over there. I was here that night when he was murdered. None of us knew what was going on at the time, of course. The enemy had stealth wards. We never heard the fighting, never heard the screams. It was a slaughter. Almost to the man, and the one who lived, their scion's son, taken to his shed. She leaned closer, that's her voice lowering. They had him for hours before he escaped. He was the only survivor. You still see him around every now and then. A very, very pretty man, but rank with darkness. It precedes him like a fog. I can sense such things. I have seer blood. They call him the Catamite Prince, owing to his relationship with the tower, which I certainly wouldn't repeat in mixed company. You must have heard. It's been said my family has seer blood too. I interrupted. Shit, Brand said. The woman turned toward me. Her ears and neck sparkled with sigils in the shape of sapphire jewelry. 10, no 12. She wore 12 sigils. That's just what was in plain sight. $1 million worth of magical firepower, and all of it probably used to store nothing more serious than spells to hide her flatulence or make her eyebrows look plucked. Truly, she said, warming to the interruption. She narrowed her eyes suggestively at my forehead, where my disguise spell placed my eyes. The disguise made me taller and blonde and apparently not rank with darkness. Yes, I lied. Yes, it is. Then tell me my future, you lovely man. While her young relative humored her with expressions just shy of eye rolls, I took one of her hands. I see you crawling on a field of blood and char with bone shards in your hair. Her eyes went wide as an oil spill of mascara. Rune, Brand said in my ear, but I was already walking away. Tell with her sigils, her fingers, her crowd of stupid bootlickers. Tell with the lovers and their heart throne and their drug slaves. Tell with 9 men, an animal mask, and the carriage house, and all the other stupid details people got wrong. Don't make me come down there, Brand said. Our companion Bond thrummed with his concern, no matter how gruff he sounded, so I stopped, closed my eyes, and took a breath, then another. I wasn't the only survivor the night my father's court was destroyed. Brand had survived too. My companion, born human and bonded with me in the crib, raised and trained to protect me, and he'd saved me, saved us both that night. I tucked my head and whispered, I hate seers. Well aware, Brand said, especially fake seers. She is a fake seer. I hate fake seers. Still aware. Isn't it time yet? His low, drawn out, said, "Message received. Rune, you remember Julia, our uptight read liaison. Apparently, Julia dropped the ball and forgot to mention the lab wing is under a secondary security system. I didn't." "Julia, please, just focus," Brand said. "Finger pointing accomplishes nothing. I'm sure Lord Tower will be very understanding about your monumental screw-up." The woman took a sharp breath. "Lord Sun, please listen. It's true. The lab wing is on a separate security system, but we've still got a few minutes before the read begins. I have the security book for tonight's party, and I know which of the lovers people are on plainclothes duty and where they're stationed. I've identified at least one high-level security director with an access card that should get you into the lab." She directed me to an archway by the chamber orchestra. Past it, every other archway on the first floor was lined up so you could see a dozen adjacent, richly appointed rooms in shotgun procession. Julia told me to narrow my search to a man just under 6 feet with ginger hair and hazel eyes. "There's 3, I whispered. "3 what?" Brand asked. I put my mouth against my sleeve as if to cough and said, 3 tall, red-haired guys." "Of course there are," Brand said. So, that is the start of The Last Sun. This is like a continually action-packed series. Like, just so much happens in each book. It's insane. So yeah. Okay. We'll do Enemies of the State by Tal Bauer. Y'all, Tal Bauer is our new favorite. We weren't ready. All of his books are about like Secret Service or military personnel, security personnel, and they're all fantastic. They're like kind of Jason Bourne or Jack Ryan-esque stories. A rogue Black Ops unit with the president in their crosshairs, a Secret Service agent who will break every rule, a president falling for the one-person nation. Dun dun dun. Austin wasn't as frigid as Washington, D.C. at Christmas time, but it still had a bite to the night air. Cold wind snaked around Special Agent Ethan Reichenbach as he stood on President-elect Jack Spears' balcony overlooking Austin's downtown at the intersection of 6th and Congress. 6th Street, Austin, a vibrant carriage strip of neon bars, thrumming music lounges, country pool halls, and late-night tattoo parlors pulsing with the laughs and shouts of college students, locals getting down, and hustlers. Christmas Day, and the party still raged. Ethan shook his head, eyeing long lines of smooth legs stretching down from miniskirts and sequined cocktail dresses. The girls shivered, huddling closer together. He'd never understand women. Instead, his gaze drifted to a group of men, college age by the looks of their clothes and lack of fashion sense. Faded jeans, t-shirts, and flannel overcoats, and loose beanies crammed on their heads. He could just make out the cut of their jaws, the curve of some of the guys' bicep. Some smoked, and others stood with their hands in their pockets, bouncing from foot to foot to stay warm. Ethan smiled. He'd been young like that once. What was it, almost 20 years ago? His 21st birthday, he'd gone out to downtown Fayetteville to get ripped, and for the first time, didn't have to hide in the trunk when he and the rest of the guys drove back onto base. Fort Bragg's military police loved to bust underage drinkers, and he'd spent countless weekends crammed in the trunk, hugging the spare tire and Corporal Lawson's crap as he was ferried in and out of the base. Ancient history. Ethan sucked in a deep breath, letting the cold fill his lungs. Texas's Capitol dome caught his eye, gleaming over the downtown. The Texas flag proudly flapped in the night breeze beneath the American flag. Here we go again. Another president, another 4 or 8 if Spears could crack the steely weariness of the American electorate. Years. After 12 years in, he was a veteran of the Secret Service. He'd started his career in the Army, still with the baby fat on his cheeks, enlisting first. 12 years and 3 presidents later, Ethan was the new senior special agent in charge of President-elect Spears' protection detail and had been handpicked to lead the president's Secret Service detail back in Washington. Headquarters put him with Spears' campaign when it became more and more obvious that the senator from Texas was set to win the general election. Another one-term president, the third in a row, was bumped from office in another display of the American public's disgust of Washington. Spears was in, the easygoing pretty boy sent to clean up D.C. Unease hung in the air in the nation's capital as if everyone in office had a timer in their back ready to pop, or a hook just out of sight waiting to pull them off stage. Presidents came and went. To Ethan, Spears was just another protectee, just another job. Spears was a promotion, a new face, and new routines, a new boss to get used to. The Secret Service didn't get involved with their assignments. They never got attached or friendly with their protectees. They were invisible, silent sentinels standing their watch. Behind Ethan, the glass door to the balcony slid open. President-elect Jack Spears poked his head out. Frowning, Ethan turned around. Why was the president-elect zipped up in his jacket? And why were his shoes on? He was supposed to be reading briefs in front of the fireplace where Ethan had left him, feet up and a beer in hand. Sir. Hey, I'm going to pop on down to 6th Street and mingle a bit. Spears nodded as if that was that and tried to close the door. Ethan grabbed the frame, stopping it. Sir, no you're not. The president-elect pulled a face. Look, this is my home state. This is my home. In fact, I've gone down to 6th Street every Christmas. It's a tradition. I mingle with the people, we share stories, I listen to them, and we all have a great time. I can't stop now. Sir, it's not possible for you to go down into the crowds. No one has been vetted. The crowd hasn't been monitored. We haven't secured any of the locations on the street. It isn't safe for you to mingle, Mr. President-elect. It's fine, really. Spears tried to force the sliding door closed against Ethan's hand. Ethan pushed back, opening the door and striding forward, making President-elect Spears step back. Jack Spears wasn't a short man. No president ever was. He was just under 6 feet. But he was nerdier looking than the other presidents. Younger too, mid-40s, with blonde hair stringed with gray from a lifetime of politics. He had a taut face, a slim jaw, and a lean swimmer's build. Black-rimmed reading glasses framed corn silk blue eyes. Eyes that turned hard and were glaring at Ethan. Sir. Ethan paused, breathing deep. It wouldn't do to piss off his new boss before Inauguration Day. That would be a new record even for him. It isn't safe for you to go out and mingle like you used to do. Things are different now. You can't move around without a protective detail, and you can't wander unprotected into crowds. He exhaled. Sir, all presidents go through this. It's tough getting used to these changes. Constant protection, security, and surveillance. President-elect Spears turned away, his back to Ethan, his hands landed on his hips. It's like being a rat in a cage. Spears glared over his shoulder. Don't you have agents here who can provide crowd protection? Where's the rest of my detail? Aren't they supposed to be on call? Ethan's stomach sank. His promotion and the warm smile Director Peter Stahl had given him flashed in his mind. He swallowed. Sir, I confirmed with your chief of staff that your plans this holiday evening were to stay in your home and have a quiet night in. What's Jeff got to do with this? Jeff Gottschalk, the president-elect's chief of staff, who was a quiet man, serious and dedicated to his service to the president. He was a man normally too busy for anyone else's questions, but he'd given that much of the president-elect's plans to Ethan. Perhaps he shouldn't have trusted Gottschalk's information. Sir, based on your chief of staff's information, I decided to give the rest of your personal detail the holiday evening off. Ethan held President-elect Spears' gaze. This is the last Christmas they'll spend with their families for the next 4 years, maybe even the next 8. Ethan watched the president-elect take a deep breath in, holding it in his lungs. Those blue eyes, so hard and frigid moments before, softened. He pulled his glasses off and pinched the bridge of his nose as he spoke. My personal detail, those are the guys who have been on the campaign right with you. I mean, they're all coming to Washington with me, with us. Yes, sir. Agents Levi Daniels, Harry Inyata, and Scott Collard. We've all been by your side since the nomination. Agent Scott Collard was like an older brother to him, and they'd propped each other up with good-natured harassment through the bitter end of the presidential campaign. When Spears had won, they toasted to the loss of their social lives for the next 4 years, with gas station vodka down from chipped motel coffee mugs. President-elect Spears unzipped his and shrugged it off his shoulders. He tossed it on the back of his couch. A spread of binders and spiral-bound reports, all covered in official red seals with confidential or top-secret clearance. Borders and stamps littered the couch cushions. Well, Spears sighed, looks like I am staying in tonight. So, that is book 1 of Enemies of the State. This is a 3-book series. That was book 1. Book 2 goes crazy. Like, book 1 is really good, but book 2 goes crazy. And book 3, we can't. It's really good. Highly recommend. All of Tal Bauer's books are so good. Then, last but not least, Wormwood Summer by Guy Butler. This series has been fantastic. Also, the audiobook narrator for this and The Last Sun. These are the only 2 I listened to on audiobook as well. But they were both really good if you like audiobooks. Wormwood Summer, Santa Maria Investigations, Book 1. When the Summer Queen summons Parker to her court, the private investigator knows there's trouble brewing. Trapped into compliance by his past debt to the famed monarch, he's tasked with locating a missing girl in Santa Maria. Now he has to find the girl or give up his life. Da-da-da. The 5th book literally just came out like 2 weeks ago, and it's a planned 7-book series. So, yeah. You know what I mean? I glanced at the octogenarian to my right and made a slight humming sound, nodding my head. At 2 o'clock on a Sunday, the park was relatively quiet. I thought so, and they're even having their annual conference here this week. The woman made a tisking sound, surely universal, showing her unhappiness with the situation. I echoed the sound, and her eyes slid off me back to the duck she was tossing bread to. Most of it was landing on the grass, but she didn't seem to notice, too wrapped up in whatever she was talking about. I tuned her out a while ago, content to let her continue talking and bolstering my disguise. Now, I'm not a bigot, she began, the words the clarion call of bigots of all stripes. But I just think if the alchemists are so set on having a big meeting, they could go somewhere with the police force to handle the security. I heard they're even having one of those big names come to town. Oh, what's the family? The one from San Francisco? I shrugged and raised my camera, snapping a couple of pictures. Did you get good ones? She asked. I'm sorry, the little ducklings aren't out right now. Across the man-made pond, Dieter made another $100 disappear with a handshake, replacing the bills with a small baggie full of green herbs. He looked around, his eyes catching on me, and I'd already forgotten her name. Priscilla, Portia, Phyllis. But since the Santa Maria Police Department wasn't in the habit of employing retirees in matching tracksuits, he ignored us, eyes narrowing on the pair of joggers passing behind us. Sure, they looked more like cops since they were running, and I looked like someone who needed a cane to get to the bathroom. After a long appraisal, he shrugged and propped himself back against the green picnic table he'd claimed for his deals. I rolled my eyes and sighed. I mean, the traffic, maybe Phyllis continued, and it'll bring out all the humans are humans protesters. Now there are some bigots. Someone came close to Dieter, a skinny teen in a black t-shirt. It was going to be another drug deal. I'd been tailing this guy for over a week, and all I'd seen was drug deals, the gym, and his pack. Not that I didn't believe my client when she said her boyfriend was lying, cheating a scumbag. But since I'd been tailing him and seeing nothing, either his girl on the side had kicked Dieter the cheater to the curb, or he was visiting her during the short catnaps I'd been taking every 8 hours. Having watched him, it could have been either. This was clearly a guy who could make a quickie very quick. I'd taken the case a few days ago, figuring it would be easy money. Hold on. Chelsea Kinney looked like a girl whose idea of a hard day would be a day when her favorite nail salon was closed for renovations. She wanted photos of her boyfriend cheating, and since, according to her, he was out nearly every night, I assumed it would be the fastest they traded money and weed when Dieter, herpes breeder, waved at the kid and headed for the sidewalk boarding the park. Careful to stay out of his line of sight, I stood and mumbled a goodbye to probably Phyllis. I made my way around the lake, moving a lot faster than someone with my apparent hips could move. Once I passed out of maybe not Phyllis's eye line, I dropped the glamour and began jogging to catch up with Dieter. My camera bag bounced on my back. If he looked back now, Dieter would see a mid-20s guy with tousled sandy hair and blue eyes. I tried to work out, but my job kept me from using any gym membership. Instead, I had the lean look of a scrappy stray dog. Passing my car where I'd parked down the street, I patted the hood fondly and slowed my pace, so I was far enough behind Dieter he wouldn't notice me. He was rushing, but he stopped to buy a bouquet from someone sitting on the sidewalk, a bucket of flowers between her knees. Checking his hair in his storefront, he headed into one of the apartment complexes backing the park. Jackpot. I walked into the same opening between buildings Dieter had and pulled up short. The 2 stories of apartments formed a small square with a pool in the middle. Dieter went straight for the center of the square instead of one of the apartments, so I hid most of my body behind the wall. With a slow, focusing breath, I reached into the air and waved my hand in a slow circle. It wasn't a full glamour, as that would take too much time. It was a kind of crude version of one, though. If it was a high school essay, the English teacher might tactfully call it a rough draft. It wouldn't fool someone looking directly at me, but most people would just see the wall and their eyes would skip right over me like I wasn't there. There was a woman sunbathing in a deck chair near the pool, and she looked about as far from my client as someone could get. She'd cut her dark black hair into chic short spikes, tattoos wrapped around her torso, and unlike Chelsea, she wore a literal dog tag hanging from her earring, which marked her as an out-and-proud werewolf. Chelsea, with her preppy sweater and ballet flats, looked like the soccer mom she probably wanted to become someday. She had the air of a person who would glance askance at a werewolf with a dog tag hanging from an earring and say something ending with "those people." As far as I could tell, it was an excellent cover since she was as wolfy as they came, and both she and Dieter were part of the South Palma pack. I snapped a series of photos as Dieter unhooked the pool gate and strode in, his grin broad. He leaned down and kissed her, and yes, that was the money shot, because outside of some very niche porn with a kiss like that, you could not claim she was his cousin or sister. It got a little heated from there, and I took enough photos to make it clear what was happening without veering into the amateur category on Pornhub. See, I tried to be as classy as it was possible to be when I spent most of my workday photographing cheaters, going through trash, and following people. I was an artiste when it came to getting a photo which said, "Hey, this guy is having an affair," without verging into prurient. I should put that on my business cards. Parker Farrow, private investigator. He'll get your pictures, but not in a gross way. I'd been at this long enough to know I could probably even get some photos of them entering the same apartment. It would add an extra cherry to the evidence Chelsea needed to prove Dieter, drug dealer, boy's boy, and cheater of the lowest class, was having an affair. She needed it to be as clear-cut as it could be. See, Chelsea wasn't trying to get the apartment or the couch in the breakup. Chelsea wanted something more valuable. Chelsea wanted custody of the soap opera pack. When she'd explained her plan to me, I thought it was a bit extreme. I'd never heard of an alpha kicking someone out because of a breakup, but she was the pack's accountant and Dieter was the pack's enforcer. They were both ranked high enough they would be dealing with each other all the time. She thought if she could show the alpha Dieter was disloyal as a partner, the alpha might consider Dieter would be disloyal to the pack. It wasn't the worst idea I'd ever heard. I knew the Sopa alpha was touchy about fealty. I had to admire Chelsea's foresight. Most women would have just thrown his stuff out on the lawn, but she'd been biding her time and playing the game. She wanted the pack and wanted Dieter left with the reputation of having been kicked out of his pack. For a wolf, I imagined it would be like getting the reputation of being kicked out of your own family. Sure, if your family was Maury-level daytime TV crazy, everyone might shrug it off. But if your family had a reputation of being fair, playing by the rules, and being aggressive jars. Well then, people were going to think you were the one with a secret baby in a basement full of hair clippings and jars. Someone bumped into me from behind, their bag full of liquid groceries crashing to the ground. Every bottle broke and soaked my jeans in dark liquor. I jerked my leg and danced away from the mess. "Where did you come from?" the guy with the liver made of steel said. Wincing, I swore. While I'd been distracted by taking classy photos of Dieter and this non-pack-approved girlfriend, I wasn't paying as much attention to my surroundings. If I wanted to do a full invisibility spell, it would involve convincing light to bend around me and some elements I didn't have on hand. Instead, my rough draft version just involved convincing people to look around me, which worked great if those people didn't then walk into me. "Hey," Dieter's wolf on the side said. "Who's that?" Dieter was squinting at me, the groove between his eyebrows deepening as he glanced from my camera to my face. "I'll tell you what he is. Dead." I could not believe I was about to be murdered by someone who sounded like he was auditioning for CSI Santa Barbara. So that is Wormwood Summer by Kai Butler. Again, I think all of these, not all of them, many of them have kind of like a witty, playful banter that I just find fun to read, and they're all like so engaging with the characters. Highly recommend. So, Wormwood Summer, The Last Sun, Hell and High Water, Enemies of the State, and Happy Endings by Rose Books. So let me know what books you have been reading and loving lately, and thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye everybody.